I hear you want to buy a new lens? You're not alone. So many people ask me, what is the best lens for Milky Way photography? That's what this video is all about. Let's dive in. First thing to think about, what focal length do you want to use? And there is not a right answer for this. You will hear people say, buy a wide angle, get the widest angle you can. That's because that lets you have the longest shutter speed, most light coming in, it's the easiest to do. But with anything in photography, your focal length is actually going to be determined by what kind of scene do you want to capture. So I'm going to link to a blog post here that shows images I've taken at different focal lengths. Here's the Coles Notes version. The more wide angle you go, the more light that gets let in through a longer shutter speed. As you go to a longer focal length, you get less light because you need a shorter shutter speed, unless you're using a tracker. Side note, want to talk trackers, there's a link down in the description on all about trackers. So the thing that people don't talk about as much is that it's a different angle of view. So a wide angle lens looks at a lot of stuff. It gets a lot in it. And wide angles inherently, things that are close to you look bigger, things that are far away, like say the Milky Way, looks smaller. So at 14 millimeters, the Milky Way is quite small. At 50 millimeters, the Milky Way is quite big. And at something like, let's say 300 millimeters, you're only getting a very small portion of the Milky Way. So you have to think about, what do I want aesthetically in my image? I will say, this is my favorite focal length currently for shooting the Milky Way. I love my 24 millimeter. I also often shoot with a 35 millimeter and a 50. I do shoot with my 50 though almost exclusively on a tracker. Once you've decided on your focal length, the next one is actually a pretty easy one. It's the idea of getting a lens that has manual focus only or autofocus built in. For night photography, you don't need autofocus. You can get a manual focus only lens. If you want this lens to use for pretty much anything else, you want to look at getting autofocus. So I have a multitude of lenses. My autofocus lenses I use for things like recording this video, taking pictures of my kids, my dog, etc. All of my manual focus lenses are specific to only night photography. I don't use them for anything else. The next one is a little bit more technical, and we're talking about your maximum aperture. And what we want here, this is the thing you should put the most of your money into, is getting the biggest aperture possible because that gets you the most light. So I have this, which is a 14 to 24 2.8. This is a 24 f1.4. This has the same focal length as this when it's zoomed in, but this gets me 2 stops more light. That's a lot when we're talking about night photography. So getting the biggest aperture possible is going to be the best. If you are talking prime versus zoom, so here's a zoom, here's a prime, you are going to find that in order to get a large maximum aperture on a zoom lens, it costs you more money. So in the prime versus zoom kind of debate for night photography, my preference is prime lenses because I'm able to get a larger maximum aperture for less money. If this is a lens that you want to do double duty, you want to use it for other things as well, a zoom lens might be something that's more practical, but you will pay more money to get that bigger aperture. I do not recommend purchasing a new lens specifically for night photography that has a variable aperture. You can do photography on those lenses. It's a little bit harder, it's a little bit more work. So I recommend getting a fixed aperture, something that is consistent through the zoom range. And yes, that's where the dollar signs come in. Because here's the thing. There are lenses out there that are beautiful, like a 50 millimeter f1.2. A picture of Jazz like coming out of the water and shaking at f1.2 on that 50 would be gorgeous. Jazz is my dog, by the way. But a picture of the night sky of the Milky Way shot on that 50 millimeter at 1.2, yeah, it's going to look like crap. So you need to look at the aberrations that are inherent to the lens that you're purchasing. Now I have a list of lenses that I recommend that have low aberrations. I'm linking to the pages below for that. But a really, really good resource is lenstips.com. milkywavephotography.com. You can go in there. They have reviews of some lenses, not all. They're working hard. Give them a donation if you can. And you can look at the reviews and go down to where it says aberration, and you can actually see where they test for aberration. So that is something that is absolutely critical, and most photographers are not looking at this very specific thing, but for us as people taking pictures of stars at night, it is crucial. The last question is name brand, hey Nikon, versus third party. Now you guys, I love my Nikons. I love my Nikon branded lenses. This lens I bought when I was in Switzerland for the first time in 2011 as an adult, and I was visiting my family, and I was like, oh my God, mountains everywhere. Are you kidding me? I need this. So I went and bought this lens, even though it was very expensive for me at the time. And this lens I've had even longer than that. I bought this years before that. I've had this lens for now 15 years, and this lens for 10 years. So these lenses are workhorses. They are going to last, if you take care of them, for a very long time. And when we talk about name brand versus third party, this is the big differentiator for me. Name brand lenses, the quality control is amazing, the build quality is generally fantastic, and they last for a very long time. Third party lenses, I love. This is my favorite lens. My Rokinon is a Samyang, same thing, different names depending on where you are, 24mm f1.4. Love it. However, Rokinon tends to have not the best quality control. I've had students who have gone lemons before. And as for the longevity, I can't comment on that. I've only had this lens for a year and a half at this point. It's solid, but will it be solid for 15 years? I don't know. Check back with me then. The thing that I see most with third party is quality control. That's not fantastic. Build quality. That's not really great. And overall sort of lasting of them. Longevity, I guess. I will say I like Rokinon and I like the Sigma Art. So I'm actually being recorded right now on the Sigma Art 35mm. And those are the two third-party lenses that I will invest my money into. Otherwise, you're going to see me with Nikon branded lenses. Now, the very last thing that I want you to think about, with everything that I just talked about, I am being specific to astrophotography. But you might not be at a point where you have all the lenses you want for all the other stuff that you want. So you have to take into consideration, what other jobs do you want this lens to do? And because of that, you may be looking to purchase a lens that is also weather sealed, that is also a zoom lens. It might need to have vibration reduction or image stabilization in it for handheld. A lot of things that just don't matter to astrophotography. So this is the reason why I'm not coming here and saying buy this lens, this lens, and this lens, because you have to also take into consideration what are the other features that I need, and then, okay, here's the astro stuff that's important, and find a lens that works for you and your practice. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and if you buy a new lens, I love new lens time. Please let me know. I'd love to hear from you.